Yep, couple of bans the last time around, but the Wildcard are going to snatch it up for themselves, and why not? It works out pretty well for them. Works out pretty well for most people who pick it at this point, but if you're no runes, well, what is the plan here? You may not be 100% certain of its position, but gotta try and deal with it either way. They do have the back-to-back picks coming up here, ET, but do you think there's any funny business? Are they even contemplating a hero for mini, or should this just be the 3-4 picks? There's the
It
3.
should probably just be your 3-4. Of course, versus Nature's Prophet, you would love, I think, in this game to just play something simple like Tiny, which is not what you
Mhm.
usually want to pair with Centaur. So maybe they'll go look for something different already. But I think that's where it's kind of tough to say. Snapfire is probably your easy pairing as well.
Ooh.
But oh, they decided to go for Sky Mage. Okay, in a game that doesn't seem to have a reason for it just yet, as typically we see Skywrath picked up in response to your Embers, to your Pucks, to mid laners who are vulnerable to that level 1 silence and can really easily be ganked mid. But Wildcard don't necessarily have their mid laner yet. And now they do, and it's
Mm.
Batrider, so okay, that's kind of annoying, but very intriguing. And of course, great magic damage on NoRunes, but as we've already seen earlier today, if Wildguard can amass those BKBs, what's it to look at? NoRunes, you're going to get Ags on Ember Spirit, your Centaur is limited, your Skywrath Mage is limited. But once we get those BKBs, there needs to be a monster now for NoRunes. In their final pick here for Mini, he needs to be that physical damage beast that causes everybody to look at him. I can only imagine Wildcard are probably looking to ban out the TB because I feel like we need Mini TB in this draft so far.
Yeah, that's the thing. Mini's got plenty of heroes in his pool that can fill that role, right? The TB, honestly, maybe even looking to like the Morphling as another potential ban, but we'll have to see what Wildcard are comfortable with, because you can use this to your advantage a little bit, right? You know the kind of hero that No Runes needs, and that means maybe you could let a still dangerous but less all-in damage dealing kind of carry just slip through the cracks now, because if Mini picks it, you're more comfortable than one of these sort of nuclear options.
Yeah, and that's also where Wildcard with last pick get to decide if this is going to
Mm-hmm.
be a Nature's Prophet carry or a Nature's Prophet off lane or a Tusk mid or oh, everybody's so flexible nowadays. It's dizzying to think about at sometimes. But that is something that No Runes will have to constantly think about when they are looking for this hero for a mini. Can it lane versus the Nature's Prophet Tusk lane if need be? Because that is a flex that Wildcard will use. If No Runes pick too weak of a laner, it's where you can already think of the heroes that they can't pick. They can't pick Void. They really can't pick Ursa in this situation. I wouldn't be surprised if Wildcard looked for maybe a Naga ban, just because that's another hero that can lane versus Nature's Prophet. Wildcard get to close that gap. Then No Runes have a much more difficult time finding that mini hero. Because no matter what ends up being ideal for them, if it's not able to lane versus Nature's Prophet or Batrider or whatever, a wild card will have that advantage.
Well, we do see a couple of the heroes they choose to ban out. They'll remove both the Doom and the OD, so they can't be 100% certain. Realistically, yeah, that makes sense. So they split the bans. Wildcard, meanwhile, took a Slark and TB, but that does leave Mini's Morphling open. So that is the route that they choose to take. And Wildcard, lockdown wise, are a little bit iffy, right? There are some forms of lockdown there, a couple of BKB piercers as well, which is nice. But in terms of something that has both the range and the lockdown to catch a Morphling before he starts actually attribute shifting, that's a little tougher.
Yeah. It's a pretty simple game for him to react until maybe Tusk gets Blink Dagger. It's really just going to be lifts from the fog, and that's
Mm-hmm.
probably your best way to kill Morphling. But it is also a drastically weaker lane than I expected No Runes to willingly pick. I was almost certain they were going to look for the Naga Siren just because it feels like it solves most of their issues. And we'll really have to see Mini kind of fix his lane and be able to survive there. And of course, laning with Treant Protector always makes your life a little bit easier. And that's an Undying. Okay. Again, very different. I feel like, and it's actually Sunlight.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
this is a direct counter versus Mini in lane. Of course, once the game gets going, Morphling loves to play versus Undying, but this is just going to be Sunlight trying to deny every single creep and just bully. Not only that, great hero versus the Treant as well, because, well, Treant's going to be in your face. Undying wants to be in your face. He wants every hero in his face, especially if he's going to be your offlaner. A card that we haven't seen Sunlight really play too much in this tournament, but loves it. He loves playing this hero. It just ends up working. And yeah, they get the flexibility, but I do have my concerns with this Treant Morphling lane. I still think the Morph was a really weak choice for them to purposely go into, but if they get away with it, they get away with it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, the good news, I suppose, in this instance is that if the lane doesn't work out, Mini's got a nice rotation into the jungle to work with, because Heiko on the Centaur is not going to demand a lot of the map to work with for himself, so you're really just farming on 2 main cores. But if the Morphling has to shuffle off to the jungle to try and catch back up, Wildcard's heroes are really going to outpace him, at least in the first, like, 20-25 minutes.
Yeah, it's also where I think Heiko breathes kind of a sigh of relief, because now versus the Nature's Prophet, as soon as he gets his Vanguard, his lane's done. We're settled. He gets to exist there as Centaur doesn't leave his lane until he gets his Blink Dagger plus an item. So I think really they made his life a whole bunch easier, but I still just wonder if Mini's going to get what he wants out of his own lane, or if we are going to see that struggle. A struggle that it will probably end up being Mr. Jeans' problem. He's going to be the one that has to fix things. He's going to be the one rotating. And of course, playing versus Batrider, Batrider doesn't like to leave his lane either until he gets his Boots of Travel. So maybe Mr. Jeans has a few more windows, but there's going to be a Batrider chasing him around the map as well. So kind of a tough game for NoRunes to actually play. But if they survive the lanes, they do have a lot to look forward to. And of course, Morphling versus the Nature's Prophet, if we're talking about them on even footing, where Mini's not getting out farmed by a Maelstrom carry, then Morphling does just eventually win out. He just beats everything.
Well, we'll see if they can survive those lanes. I'm still very interested to see just how well Jupiter plays here, because you mentioned when it was picked up directly that there wasn't really too much of a reason for it, and it still does kind of feel that way. I mean, the subsequent picks don't really help him out too much. I guess technically if Mini got a max stun on the strength version of Adaptive, that's a long stun to set up for a Mystic Flare, but how often is Mini gonna be in a position to get that max stun? It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, no, it'll be hard to say, but I think seeing how that bottom lane goes for Wildcard is really going to be the first sign here, because then if Flea's lane goes well by kind of proxy, then the mid lane gets pressured a little bit more, then the Rubik gets to rotate around, then everything starts to kind of fall in line here. I really think Nuages kind of has his work cut out for him as a top lane. Samson and the creep block, a lot of damage onto Jupiter, and well, their little attempt here that they were looking for with the Treant Protector looks like it's just going to kind of fall flat.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to do. I suppose you could sneak back in to try for that concussive shot, but you've got to be so careful on the positioning. But they are going to try. Well, they're still giving it a go, even with the missed stomp, and Samson
He's
is...
blocked.
Yeah, he's trapped. Nice stick charges, nice fairy fire, still dead, not so trapped after all, and... Well, that's now supports on both sides who managed to sort of walk away from some very awkward situations.
Yeah, Heiko's going to be kicking himself for that one. That was 100% first blood, but, you know, can't get too upset at each other. In the meantime as well, that actually was a little bit of misery that Mini had in front of him. He was just getting clicked by a Rubik and decayed over and over, while his lane is now completely out of control. Someone has the wave so far up. This is not how Mini wanted to kind of start his game here.
Well, back up top, Samson and Ark tried to push in onto Jupiter. They got a lot of damage onto him, but this time Heiko, very patient, fakes out the hoof stomp once or twice before hitting onto 2, and that allows everyone to walk away. But there's a lot of damage flying back and forth, and ET, I did actually want to ask you before some of those early fights went down for Flea, Obviously, he's picked up a little bit of extra regen now in the first minute or two, but he came to lane with basically just this full null talisman, so... Well, maybe an indication that they want as much damage as they can. They want to be as in-your-face as possible as Samson denies himself to neutrals.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, it's a great item. It gives you a little bit more mana regen, but also gives you even more stats to just aggressively trade. Even though it is kind of funny to see, and maybe it's a play knowing that Nuages isn't going to start with the boots because he's got a stick. He should have a stick. There's a lot of spells that are going to get flung in this lane, but it just means that he doesn't get punished for being that much slower than the Treant. And the pull gets off, and the lane pushes into the Undying, and it still isn't fun. Got close there with Arc, but of course he's Nature's Prophet, so he's gonna get that get out of jail free card. Uses his TP scroll back.
That was exceptionally close to a kill for NoRunes, but not able to get it. But I mean, nobody is shy in this lane. Look at Samson. Pushes forward, pops tag team. You know, a couple of slaps across the backside for Heiko. No kill potential there whatsoever, but they're still just willing to duke it out here as... Okay, Jupiter wants to go back to the fountain. He ends up dying. Technically, that puts a kill on the board there for Wildcard, but in terms of the actual gold they get, not really.
Yeah, second deny of the game. Pretty funny, but just goes to show how much actual trading is going on. Trading that I think is really heavily favoring Heiko, just because he's the strongest one, but oh boy, Bobatich. Oh, it's a simple refill, and not even a refill, because Mr. Jeans doesn't have the bottle because he's properly playing Ember versus Batrider. But I'm so happy. This is the first time it feels like in a while where the Ember actually feels like he has the advantage. It feels like a much closer lane that we all know and we talk it up to be, but sometimes the Batrider still gets away with murder, but not this time.
Good rotation in there from Jupiter. Just TP's in, hidden, where the vision doesn't sort of see him initially, and all he really threw out was a concussive shot there, but that is enough. Sets them up for the kill, and the first legitimate kill of the game, let's say, right? Goes into NoRunes' hands, but now Jupiter makes his way back up top, because Heiko does still kind of need his assistance. We have not hit the Centaur doesn't need a babysitter situation just yet.
Yeah, still a lot of physical damage, and Heiko, yeah, isn't going to get creep blocked up, but there is the shards, there is the snowball, and I think Heiko... Oh no, Samson is going to split now, and Arc is the one who's actually going to go down.
He's pulled himself all the way under the tower, so he is in no position to help, and at least they were able to TP the Nature's Prophet out. But Samson... Does he survive this? Depends on if he wants to use the Mango on Jupiter, and he doesn't, so... Everyone walks away from that. That was not the way it was looking like it was going to be, and now that I say that, Jupiter is going to get picked off here. So eventually a kill happens, but... Well, both sides were not the cleanest with the execution there.
No, yeah. A good deal of hesitancy and just a slight misplay from Samson made things look a little bit sketchier than I think they really were, but, yeah, could be worse. Of course, Skywrath Mage is just going to TP back mid, refill up his teammate's bottle, and then he'll be back around. But just another one of those benefits. One of those benefits we're not used to necessarily seeing, but the Skywrath Mage just naturally being a fast hero. Doesn't have boots, but still feels like he can walk around the map and kind of do this, even though Heiko might be on his teammate in a sec here. But both Tusk Spells used already, and actually Mr. Jeans looking for a free kill, but he misses the chains, which makes this a little bit less likely. Even though Samson without boots, I mean, can't be that hard.
Yeah, he should just be able to run it down now. There it is. Samson gave it his best try, but he's still going to get taken down. Meanwhile, in the river, a little bit of a support fight. Jupiter with the haste rune. Unfortunately, still doesn't have any actual hard lock down there, so Rubik is simply able to walk away. TP's home, all is well on that front, because the hasted Skywrath Mage really is not too much of an issue. You keep it out of the bottle of the Ember, and that doesn't mean he can't make rotations, but Mr. Jeans will maybe be slightly less inclined to do so without the rune to power him up.
Yeah, and of course, that TP from Mr. Jeans does drag him away from the 6-mana power rune, which is what you pretty much never wanted to see. As I think again, Heiko. Thing is, he's got 3 points up in return. Just straight up hitting him is not really fun.
Mm.
Just ends up eating so much damage. Even though he's very low, you actually need the magic to kind of finish him off in this situation.
I mean, he's got the Ring of Health, so he is healing over time. He's got the stick up, so he was prepared to hold his ground as Mr. Jeans. Okay, Sleight of Fist in, Searing Chains connect, Silence out from Jupiter, so there won't be any sort of snowball play immediately, and it's, well, not going to come up in time no matter what. Samson gets taken down, and the second Mr. Jeans confirms he's got the kill, jumps back mid.
Yeah, and you would hope that Bobatich is getting enough out of the map while this is all going on. Of course, he kind of is. He even gives the lane over to Flea, which Flea absolutely loves. Gets him closer to his 6, but he's not as close to his boots of travel as I really thought he would be for kind of jungling and taking the lane away from somebody else. We'll have to see. 8-minute power rune. Big rotation here on bot, but will it end up being here? Remnants are in place, and that is a huge rune for Mr. Jeans.
Mm-hmm. Already been rotating around pretty frequently for this early stage, and now he's got a DD rune. And speaking of rotations, both of the supports pulling top. Jupiter already here. Nuagas TP's in. They're going to clear out the wards first. I believe they got those in the right order so that Nuagas' TP was not spotted, but at this point, Wildcard are already starting to pull back. They want nothing to do with the situation, and yeah, it's smart of them to do so. So now if you're NoRunes, you could try and go for a push, but since you pulled both of your supports, Mini is entirely alone down bot, and Wildcard jump on.
Yeah, got a little greedy. I watched that kill. Just thought he would be safe on maybe 300 HP, but ends up dying to a combo. Mr. Jeans is down here without really anybody else. He's doing a ton of damage, and he actually has an exit plan. So Sunlight will die to one more chance. There's the Stampede. Oh, it's close, but 1 hit, 2 hits, doesn't lay out, and the raindrop actually saves him. But Mini, perfect TP.
TP's in, finishes Sunlight. Does not want to chase, though. Probably the smarter move. But all really kind of works out in the end there. Right? They defend the tower, they find a kill. Here comes Bobatich, though, and Mini has to be careful. He's holding waveform. Holding. Now he'll use it, going in for Arc. Saying, listen, I'm surrounded. Might as well try for the kill. But he's not going to be able to get it, and now he will be taken down. So, after praising him for a well-timed TP and a quick kill, now we get into weird stuff. Because that's Mini dead twice in like a minute and a half.
Yeah, and neither support TP, as they probably shouldn't. Without Overgrowth, and we just can't do much, and Jupiter probably would have just been another body on the pyre, but that's what happens. Stampede was already used. Heiko doesn't want to leave his lane either, so it just ends up being kind of a hollow play. A bad game for Mini so far, but this is the same thing that happened the last time they picked Morphling as well. Mini was just kind of means to an end on this Morphling until he got his Scotty, and then he becomes the carry that just beats everybody. But until then, he is really kind of given up a lot of his game for his teammates, who are picking up the slack. Mr. James gets another power rune. He's got a haste now, but Heiko is making way for his Blank Dagger. It's mid, though. A lot of damage. Nature's Wrath comes through, but there's the chains.
Locking him down. Where is that snowball going? It was onto Nuagas, but he died, so they just get to snowball safely. Both supports dead on NoRunes, and oh man, they just needed a little more damage, right? They had 2 heroes chainsed up and weren't able to finish the job.
No, they just got a little bit greedy there, and I think that's also with Sunlight coming over, just a little bit too much magic damage that they want to deal with. New Aegis also hasn't been able to exist bottom because it has just been Mini on his own, and Mini on his own looks like he's going to get taken down. But it does feel like they're just not using this Treant too well. He doesn't really have a home. He doesn't have a tower to hold. The tier 1s died a little bit too early, so he's struggling to find his level 6. And then Mini just gets taken out in no man's land. Just a little bit of an awkward way that NoRunes are deciding to play their lanes here. Because now, I mean, Treant Protector is jungling a medium camp. This is feeling pretty bad.
Yeah. And that is the downside, right? Living Armor okay, cool. You can use it on the towers in the other lanes if they're pressured, but your own lane is supposed to survive longer. It's not supposed to be the first one to go down. And speaking of going down, Jupiter, not a fun time. Gives up the concussive as well, I believe. Flea was able to take that away, so, you know, the Rubik's got a little bit more to work with in terms of his lockdown, and there's some items starting to come in. That was a mech finished off by Sunlight. Arc just got his Midas picked up, so Wildcard are going to start accelerating here, both in terms of their farming rate and maybe their willingness to start taking some fights, because Sunlight can now just pop ult and stand in the middle of maybe the entire NoRunes lineup at this stage.
Yeah, and that's also where, to meet those items, there is going to be a very active Centaur running around the map pretty soon here. He's got his Blink Dagger and at least one more creep wave, and then he's going to be looking for a play. The only thing that NoRunes have to be careful of is overextending without Stampede. It's kind of the classic mistake you make with this hero. You initiate with Blink Hoof Stomp, you Stampede for a little bit more damage, and then if you stick around a little bit too long, then you're going to get picked apart by this Bat Rider. That's the mistake they 100% are going to want to and need to avoid. Because Bobatich is just farming. He's happy. He's farming some Ancient stacks right now. He's getting big. Taking a little bit of farm away from his Nature's Prophet, but a Nature's Prophet that really doesn't mind too much. As bottom, though, that was your smoke. That was kind of your dynamic duo going in with max level silence. The Rubik is very helpless versus that combo.
And there is the setup for the Mystic Flare, right? We were kind of wondering about that. The Searing Chains, honestly, still is not the greatest, but it did the job there.
Look at Samson here. Blink reveal, but needs a friend. Friends are coming, but this is kind of slow.
Oh, the snowball didn't get him over. That's very unfortunate. It leaves him in the river, but the lasso is going to be deployed. The problem is, Aiko is tough to bring down. I think they should get him here, but Mr. Jeans is coming back in. Do you want to fight into Tombstone, though? No, you do not. So, Aiko sacrifices himself, makes the play. The problem is, that is core for support.
Yeah, and well, that's what you get. That's the Stampede. Overextension, immediately gets lassoed. Of course, had to play versus High Ground Vision in that instance as well. So really, a lot going against Heiko in that one moment. But could be worse. And with any attention brought to that top lane, the Morphling gets to farm. Mini gets space. He gets to exist in the triangle for a little bit without any more pressure. Meanwhile, bottom, huge setup onto New Aegis right now. They're really trying to gun for him. Bobatich eventually finds the connection. Samson with the shards is probably enough as long as he's behind him, and yeah, looks pretty free.
Yep. Didn't really have to commit anything too big there, which is great because they didn't really have the lasso. Ooh, okay. Still don't have the lasso, but they're going to smoke up here. Could just go for a quick kill onto Jupiter, but with Mr. Jeans in the area, now it gets complicated. They've got to try and split that damage. They were able to do so for a moment. Will that be enough? Bobatich trying to get away. Flies himself over, but he's contemplating going back in because Mr. Jeans has such little mana. He doesn't really have the health to try that, though, so the bat has to back away, which means Samson is left holding the bag.
Yeah. Kind of just gets picked off. Has great vision bottom, but isn't able to do very much with it as Mini. Oh, boy. So close.
Just wait for him.
In the double wave, yeah.
Ooh.
Very playing the dangerous game, but you know, it's got his bracer. It's so funny. He's the only Morphling I really see do this, but he's doing it. It works. But I think now we're probably going to see Wildcard, at the very least, maybe go for a play in mid, just because it looks like this is a free pick on an Aegis, but then maybe wait a little bit. And perfect play. Stolen Remnants, but they want the punish on the Sunlight. Sunlight does have mech and ulti, though, but with that silence, perfect from Jupiter.
There are too many tombstones on the ground from both sides, but they are going to continue pushing the way forward. Sunlight dead, Flea goes down, Snowball, it still hits onto Mr. Jeans. He jumped away from it initially, but it pulled him back into the river, so he still gets stunned and taken down, and that is unbelievably unfortunate for your Ember. But if you're Wildcard, I feel like you're relatively happy with that. Sunlight going down is a bit of a bummer, but you get a little bit more gold, you get more experience out of it, and oh, well, okay. This is going to change that. Bobatich caught out on the wrong side of the river, and that Mystic Flare does a lot of the heavy lifting as they find another kill.
Nope. Nice pick. Bogatich, one component away from his BKB, so kind of unfortunate. But
Hmm.
this is Wildcard's first big timing. The Ags is almost completed. The BKB is almost done on Batrider. You have the Greaves finished up on Sunlight. If there was ever a moment for them to really look for a large-scale team fight, it'd probably be about now. But that's where, unfortunately for them, unless Arc feels comfortable getting on top of one of these buildings, which is really only if Heiko's already initiated, the rest of the lineup can't really push. It's where neither the Batrider or Undying really put too much pressure out onto the map. So a lot of that does just fall to the Nature's Prophet, who is great, who does do that job very well, but you also can't afford to just throw Arc at a building and then expect him not to die at this point without a BKB.
Just gotta kind of play it a little bit slow at the moment, but well, we'll see what they can do over the next couple of minutes here. There is a Manta Style now finished up on Mini, so it's got that finished up. Gonna be a lot harder to sort of keep him locked in place unless you're willing to commit one of those major spells. And what are we planning here, boys? 4 heroes hanging out mid. Do they have a smoke? There's one on Flea in his backpack. At the same time, though, Heiko makes the jump in. Ooh. Blink Stomp onto 2. Stampede into Mystic Flare. It's just too much damage, but okay. Flea steals Stampede. Not a bad play, but 2 heroes down. I don't really know if they want to fight right now. They're just trying to hold the tower, but can they actually do so? It's so low in HP at this point. They're just going to stick it. Oh, Bobatich goes in. Overgrowth is going to sort of lock him down, but he did still get onto Heiko, so the damage is there. Heiko dead. Noagus goes down. That was just a very awkward scenario, right? On the one hand, you had Wrath of Nature rooting everyone. On the other hand, you had Overgrowth rooting everyone. So they all just kind of stood there and stared at each other for 2 or 3 seconds before the fight sort of continued. But the fight still may not be done here. Eyeballing each other in the river. There's going to be the snowball jump onto Jupiter. Punches him into space, and at that point, Mr. Jeans doesn't want to get involved again.
Yeah, and they do end up actually getting the tier 1, which is what they set out to do. They accomplished their initial goal, as well as now getting that revenge with Heiko and Jupiter still respawning. I don't think we're going to see a last-ditch effort to defend this mid-tier 1, so ends up being a pretty nice objective for Wildcard to nab, even though, again, always got to bring it up. Mini is farming. He did not blink at that team fight. He was just kind of doing his own thing, maybe hovering, but always getting to at least one of the lanes, and he is starting to get quite a lot of farm.
Dragonlance now picked up, so he's going to have the stats, going to have that little bit of extra range. Over on the other side, an attempt to get close to Noagus there, I do believe. They had the angle, just didn't really have the speed. Now they're in trouble. There's going to be the blink, the jump in, good heal attempt from Sunlight. Making sure Flea doesn't go down immediately, and now this is bold. Samson's all the way in, but they have sort of kind of split them up. Noagus gets caught off to the side, so they do pick him off, but they need more than that. Mr. Jeans, though, trying to make his move. They get in onto the Tusk, able to take him out, so that just turns it into a 1-for-1 trade. Does anything more come of this, though? It feels like everybody kind of used up most of their ammunition, so it's going to back it off.
Yeah, just ends up kind of petering out, and that's where Wildcard do need to be very cautious still, because if they start to lose ground, of course, Flea with the Stolen Overgrowth is a very dangerous man now that will anchor down probably the bot lane or wherever, to be honest, but it needs to be careful that they don't give up too much initiative here, especially with the BKB on Mr. Jeans. I mean, top net worth hero. Mr. Jeans is incredibly powerful right now. If he gets to lay out, especially onto Arc, Arc is still helpless until he gets his BKB. It's where they really have to choose their matchups when it comes to these team fights. Otherwise, heroes will still get initiated on, die incredibly quickly. It's where the Centaur and Skywrath Mage, even though they haven't made the most plays together, they still have a ton of levels split between the two. The damage in that combo is just incredible. Just at level 12 as well, so Jupiter is pretty much able to kill anybody, actually, even the Batrider at this point.
A Batrider who did just get his... Oh. That's awkward. Did just get his Blink Dagger up and running here, so he now has the means to initiate. His teammates just tried to initiate there, but they throw a couple of spells onto what ends up being an illusion. Not quite the way that they wanted that to go, but not a whole lot lost, right? It's not like they blew any major cooldowns. As Samson, yeah. Once you're caught, you're caught. Searing Chains, eaten to the Mystic Flare, silence on top of it just so there's no sort of snowball play defensively. And as you said, level 2 Mystic Flare just gives them so much more confidence to push for any kill that they can find.
Yeah, just ends up being that free play. They are able to collapse on this tier 2. Of course, NoRunes still having Glyph. They want to. They can afford to Glyph this time, and then the next time, they're going to have to go for that setup. But in typical Mini fashion, he's the early one here. He is ready to defend this building, and he will start clearing away those creeps. But Wildcard have a choice. Do we chance our initiation here on Mini, or do we give up and take the lanes? And that's what they decide to do, even though half the lineup, they really want Mini, but it's such a difficult dive. And here we go, but doesn't react. Mini's a faster gun.
Well, Mini doesn't have to have a faster gun. He's got the shard here too, so he just was so confident. Doesn't matter. If you jump on me, I am shifting no matter what, and now the teammates will TP in, and they're going to look to turn this around. Wildcard, well, I don't know. That wasn't really a sneaky play. They saw Mini in the lane. They should have seen that they had the shard. They just thought maybe they had enough damage in a 3 or 4v1 to kill him anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't blame him, because that is something that Morphlings don't do. They say, Roche will give me my shard. I can afford to be greedy, you know, yada, yada, yada. But it just works in this situation. It just means that he can get out of jail free card, and baits at least a kill onto the Rubik. Could have been a lot worse for Wildcard. They didn't even use Bobatich's BKB. They were really trying to use as little as possible to kill Mini there.
Yeah, they didn't use his BKB. They did use Lasso, but that's a shorter cooldown at this point, so they're okay with that. That is a BKB, though, now picked up on Arc, so he's finally in a position where I wouldn't say he has no worries in the fight, obviously, but that was the major thing holding him back, right? Not having that magic immunity if he gets turned on, so now Wildcard can be a little bit more aggressive. The problem is, NoRunes are feeling pretty confident in themselves. They're going to smoke up. They've got Stampede. They've also got a Lotus on Heiko, so he can just really... Ooh. He can do whatever he wants, or maybe he can't, because Flea is a little bit faster. Now do they want to try and turn this, though? They did use Arc's ult in there. And they are hesitant to push all the way forward, guessing correctly that all of NoRunes are sort of on the back line, but they still get the jump onto Flea, able to take him down quickly. Samson gets clipped by the stun there as well, but the teammates are coming in to try and help. Mr. Jeans, though, hoping to fight. He just lassoed an illusion. That is awkward. Bobatich has just got to back up, but as he backs off, here comes all of NoRunes streaming into the fight. Samson's already dead. Arc dropping low. BKB helping keep him alive for now, but it won't be enough. Mini still picks up the kill. Back to the west. Sunlight's doing an admirable job of trying to hold out, but eventually they're going to collapse back onto him. There it is. Not what Wildcard were hoping for there, and considering how much damage Mini does in that fight, it's not the most out of all of his teammates, but it's about 2k. If Bobatich actually does get the lasso on the right one, maybe you can outlast that, but lasso on the illusion really kind of shoots him in the foot.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it's the opposite issue. Wildcard just run out of magic damage. The BKB on Mr. Jeans, even if he gets that lasso off, I feel like it's just an awkward game of just hitting, where the Nature's Prophet doesn't do enough damage. And that's where, interestingly enough for Arc, we've seen a lot of Midas Nature's Prophets. We've seen a lot of Midas Gleipnir Nature's Prophets. Very rarely have we seen a Maelstromless Nature's Prophet. And that's mainly because Arc is terrified of going into a right-click war versus the Morphling, a battle he knows he's going to lose. But he's doubled down, effectively, on trying to get the BKB Ags as soon as possible, meaning that when it comes to that right-click war, he is leagues behind Mini. A Mini who is looking for Scotty, has an Aegis who is looking to be that carry. So when that BKB on Mr. Jeans goes off, all the damage is just gone. You don't have nothing from Wildcard. It's where I think doubling down on this build has really shot them in the foot.
Yeah, and there's a world where it could have worked out in their favor, right? But the other sort of points of the triangle here in terms of the core trio from Wildcard have not been able to pick up the slack. Bobatich's damage is really just not there. It's his magic over time and obviously Sunlight. I mean, if you're looking for your Undying to start doing significant amounts of damage, you know you're in a bad spot. He is all about durability and utility here, so as you say, Arc, I mean, he's trying to switch up now. You see the Gleipnir is queued up for him, but is now too late to try and make that transition. Wildcard, they're hoping to make an initiation here. They did get onto Jupiter, but they need to be able to deal with the cores, and that's not really happening. There's going to be your Overgrowth coming through. Bobatich gets taken down. Stolen Overgrowth is going to try and reset the fight, though. How well can they do that? They still have not really dealt with the cores. The damage is significant. They're going to lose their Tombstone as Mini is able to just focus it down. But slowly they're turning this. Sunlight trying to lead from the front, but Mini morphs into the Undying, drops a Tombstone of his own. Wildcard, do you want to do this? Do they want to go back in? That's a Scotty just being delivered. So Mini is going to hit that a little bit harder. Heiko trying to bait them in, blinks away. They really are just being careful at this point, but there's going to be the root coming in. Mr. Jeans wants the fight. They've spotted Arc. They know he has no defensive capabilities, so they quickly take him down, and that breaks the whole thing wide open.
Oh, and even Sunlight. There's no hook stomp for 4 seconds. Heiko really wants it, though.
Oh, there's the slow coming in from Jupiter, rejoining the engagement, and yeah, Mystic Flare down. And, oh, hold on, they rooted Bobatich. He has no BKB for 20. Just a little bit too close on the back end of that fight. There wasn't even anything he was going to be able to do to contribute there. He just gets caught in the crossfire. And that is what swings it definitively into NoRunes' hands. Before it was looking a little iffy. They had suffered some casualties, but now it's a clear-cut win.
No, yeah, they just get caught in their cooldowns a little bit, in their timers, but even then, I think the problems are a little too many at this point. There's just too good of an initiation. They did a great job finding Jupiter early. That killed a lot of Heiko's threat with his hoof stomps, but it still is a Morphling that you have to deal with. It's still an incredibly farmed Ember that you have to deal with. And you look over at Arc, and the answer for Arc is to be level 20 right now and have a little bit more farm, but until he gets that Sprout Leash talent, they just simply don't have a great way of dealing with Mr. Jeans. He's too tanky, he's too big, he has too much net worth. He's right up there with Mini. There's just too many problems with the cores right now.
Yeah. Wildcard can kill supports. In the right circumstances, they've been able to take down Heiko once or twice, but there is no answer for Mini and no answer for Mr. Jeans, so... Okay, right? So the thought process now shifts to, let's see if we can take a fight without either of those two heroes, but NoRunes will never let that happen, right? They are never going to push that far forward without one of their two main cores.
No, and with another 50 seconds on the Aegis, they're trying to get Glyph here, and they are going to try to force things. Wildcard does not want to get bottled back from their base. Bobatich isn't even here. He's trying to hunt down Aegis, who is also being really obnoxious, but his tier 3 is going. And there's the Glyph. Gets Lotus Orbed off immediately from the root, and now they'll start to back away, but that is Glyph. That means that if NoRunes take any successful fight on the dire side of the map, it's at least going to be a tier 3, but very likely could just be a rack at that point.
Good play there from Arc. Able to get a little bit of a creep cut going, so that does alleviate that pressure. And Arc, he's got his Maelstrom up now, so... I mean, he's making progress towards the DT, but this is sort of what we were mentioning before. Is it going to be too late to matter? Is Bobatich... Yeah, that sucked. And Jupiter is going to sort of throw a tip his way. Lasso used onto a Skyret that you do not kill. And now... Okay, there's no Lasso. They're going to smoke us forward. They're going to push their way in. Mini is acting as the trailer on this play. Only a few seconds behind. Full Satanic built up. ET, if Wildcard have any inkling this is coming, I think they need to back up, because this feels just about unwinnable for them in terms of an engagement, but they don't back up in time. Arc gets caught. BKB never activated. And he's dead for 60 with no buyback, so this very well could be NoRunes' path up onto the high ground. There we go. Creep Wave's coming up behind him, so they're going to push, and now there's no Glyph.
There's no Glyph. There's a full Satanic on Mini as well, so he's going to have another Dispel to play around with. Well, it just doesn't feel like they have enough lockdown. and they will decide to move on. Backdoor's kicked out, so Mini very easily can mop up this tier 3 bottom. We'll see if there's a creep cut attempt for that mid wave, but immediately onto the range racks. They're not going to want to glyph for that, but nobody's making it towards that mid wave, so they've got a glyph for this Rax, but we'll see. Backdoor's about to kick back out once this mid wave gets a little bit further up, and then, well, 20 seconds. There's no way you're going to buy back now, and I guess they're just going to hold it. They're hoping for a fight, but there's no real reason for NoRunes to leave right now. You still have Glyph. We could still force it. Their lanes are in kind of an annoying spot, and with No Aegis leaving, they will decide to retreat towards their vision towards top, but this is Wildcard smoke. This is a pretty good opportunity as well, but with the lanes coming in mid and bottom, they only have a finite amount of time to find this pick before it becomes very obvious nobody's pushing.
Gotta try and make the move quickly. The problem is they're going kind of in the wrong direction right now, pushing to the southeast, whereas NoRunes are falling back to the west, and yeah, they've got to try and cut this, well, cut the wave. Arc is pushing out, so that could maybe lend them a little bit more time. But at this stage, they're going to run out of time on the smoke itself. They did get to the high ground while it happened, but there's just no play. I mean, it's a nice move, it's just in the wrong direction.
Yeah, they get control is the one thing we can say. They don't have a tier 2, so they can't steal back an outpost. That's something that NoRunes will always have over you at this stage. But they are able to place this nice high ground ward. If they need, they can now kind of push out mid and then decide to reset. This is where you would want one of those full map crossing smokes to happen, or you retreat away from your own vision, hoping that your opponents fill the space. It's where they're hoping that NoRunes split for any reason, but NoRunes just simply aren't. They say, okay, let's just always be as 5. That's our only way to really lose this game, is if we split up. And look at Arc. Another initiation right out the gates, and well...
Oh, it's painful. He does have buyback this time around, and look at the scramble to get heroes back in position defensively, but only 2 in the base so far. Bobtich is going to make it 3. Do they have the strength to do this? Mini doesn't really have much of a need to feel cautious right now. You even see Heiko just hanging out on the back line, hitting him up with the Lotus occasionally. Wildcard just going to let a second lane of Rax go here. They don't have Glyph anymore. You see Samson trying to fake it out, but they know he has no blink. There's no actual initiation here. Well, not from Samson, at least. On to Samson, sure. Mr. Jeans, very aggressive, maybe too aggressive there. He is saving 1 Remnant, but you can't Remnant when you're lasso. They're going to be able to pull him in. Do they have the damage, though? No, they do not. He is jumping around, doing his best to stay alive, and well, at this point, just going to turn around for the damage, but here's the thing. We'll be generous, and we'll say that that death allows NoRunes to finish off the Rax ET, but now we'll be mean, because they did not need that at all. They had the Rax no matter what.
Yeah, it's like a Eternal Envy Ember Spirit moment. You're just like, oh, he's in. Oh. Well, there he goes. There he goes. And there he went. It's not like NoRunes really changed the game plan at all. The other 4 members still doing a nice job of sticking around. Nuwe just in the mid lane breaking smokes. The rest of the lineup just sitting on top of their vision. But there's no glyph. There's only 1 lane left. NoRunes are still looking for kills. Nuwe just is going to break the smoke. So, yeah, what can you do? Well, they can lose this fight 4v5. They need to be so careful being outside the base right now.
Well, Heiko makes a jump in. They've actually got the Bat Rider. But with Bobtich dead, I don't really know about this. Sunlight's in trouble. He's got to fall back. He's not going to really make it. They're just pushing their way forward. Sunlight goes down, and yeah. Doesn't matter that you have the man advantage if you still can't deal with those cores. Mini picks up, I think, all 3 of those. So, cool. The Ember Spirit's not there, but the Ember Spirit is not a necessity for a teamfight win, and Wildcard learned that the hard way.
Man, he'll be back with his team sooner than later, but Backdoor is gone. You don't have Glyph. You don't have Bat Rider for 30 seconds. I feel like this is just going to be the Rax. It has to be just the Rax. Maybe not the game, but I think Wildcard are kind of stalling at this point. Just feels like this game is already said and done. Just too many things ended up going wrong. There's even a Roche if NoRunes really want to be extremely careful, which it looks like they are giving that respect over to Wildcard, but it would appear that Wildcard have maybe one more team fight left in them. They're not going to have Glyph for another 2 minutes. This Roche is only going to take a few seconds. There's going to be another Aegis for Mini. He's got a full Daedalus as well. I don't even know if Mini wants the Aegis, to be honest, because he could afford not to. It's just so unlikely that he gets taken down without NoRunes reacting at this point. They just have too many items at this point.
And we'll see who grabs this. Looks like Mini is going to drop the boots. Or backpack them, rather. But he has the Aegis. Shard is gonna be picked up. Anybody? There we go. Heiko had to do some inventory management, but he is gonna grab it, and this is it. If you're Wildcard, time to, well, pull out a miracle or fold. Really, those are kind of the only two options. ET at this point, a successful team fight, a team fight that defends Wildcard's base, keeps them in this game. What does that even look like?
It's finding Jupiter early, it's getting Heiko to waste Stampede, and it's Mini not looking at his game, because that's the one part that you can't really fix right now. And I mean, onto the first tier 4, half HP, Samson is just dying, and now he's going to get pulled all the way away. The Lotus Orb is going to hit, though, and maybe, nope, doesn't snowball.
Lasso, a couple of roots come in, but they've lost Bobtich. Buyback immediately coming through, though, from him and Samson. But meanwhile, look at Sunlight on the back line, just trying to be as disruptive as possible, buying a lot of time to get the Gleipnir in onto a couple, but they still haven't dealt with Mini, and Mini is just going to start tearing through some of these heroes. Arc is dead, Samson's gone. Sunlight eventually will be brought down, and that may just be the end of it here. There's a buyback from Sunlight, however, so he's back in, but at this point the tier 4s are under attack, and Mini, well, he's on the offensive, looking for the kills. Not able to get Sunlight immediately, so he'll switch his attention to Flea, quickly able to take the Rubik out, and shoves Bobtich back into his own fountain. Sunlight will fall, tier 4s still getting hit all this time, and there's your GG. Wildcard eventually concede defeat, and NoRunes.
That was lame.
They look good, they look confident, mostly clean execution in these fights, and they take the opening match.
Yeah, no, real clean stuff yet again. I think this Mini Morphling, it got bullied, it didn't look great, but Mini just makes the worst Morphling games look all right, and he eventually gets over the hump. But I think, really, don't want to give him too much credit. At the end of the day, there was a lot of space that needed to be allotted. There was a lot of time that was given to him, mainly from Mr. Jeans. Mr. Jeans' performance in this game just kind of propelled everybody else on NoRunes forward. Whenever Heiko's finishing up his blink, he's making plays with Jupiter. When he's not making plays with Jupiter, he's making solo plays onto Samson, slowing up the game. And I think in combination to Mr. Jean's fantastic play, Arc, again, not going for Maelstrom, already shying away from the carry build. And I understand why he does it, but just ends up falling so far short in the moments where they need a right clicker, they need a little bit of damage. It's where I think Wildcard drafted themselves a little bit into a corner here, especially with the Undying pick, where they don't have that mix, and they're so vulnerable versus BKBs. And then Mr. Jean's fantastic performance gets him an early BKB, and then they just hit like a wet noodle. It's just too much.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the frustrating thing for Wildcard from the cores. Bobtich and Sunlight did not do a poor job in terms of what they were drafted to do. Right? Sunlight was a tanky monster. Bobtich was still able to make the initiations, but if you don't have a solid, reliable damage dealer to follow up on your tankiness and your initiations, then it doesn't matter that you do those things well, because you just can't win any fights.
Yeah, and that was the problem. They couldn't win fights. They couldn't really get onto buildings without Arc. I think the bully, it worked for a little bit, but maybe Mini just likes to get bullied and then just likes to come out of the jungle 10 times as strong, because exactly what he did. It's where I think maybe a slight change up from Wildcard. Not in the opening, not even in the second phase, but maybe with some of their ideas, because something clearly went wrong here.
Well, we'll see what they have in mind for Game 2, because they do still have that second chance coming away with at least 1 point out of this matchup. So we'll see if their adjustments will matter, or if NoRunes are going to be able to make it a clean 2-0 sweep. We'll be stepping aside for a couple of minutes, and we'll be back with the Game 2 draft.